Have you ever created something meaningful and then felt completely terrified to share it? That was me. I had drafted a book, but when it came time to publish it, I hesitated. Not because I thought the ideas were worthless, but because publishing something feels deeply exposing. What if people judge it? What if it is not good enough? What if I fail publicly? That's exactly why I picked up Daring Greatly by Brené Brown. I wanted to understand what was happening beneath that fear and whether courage is something we can actually learn. And this book turned out to be far more than a book about courage. It's really a book about shame, vulnerability, connection, and what it means to live wholeheartedly. The title comes from Theodore Roosevelt's famous Man in the Arena speech. The idea that real courage belongs to the person who steps into the arena, who risks failure, criticism, and imperfection. And immediately that resonated, because creating anything, writing, speaking, loving, parenting, leading, means stepping into the arena. And Brené Brown's central argument is simple but uncomfortable. Vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is courage. She defines vulnerability as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure, which honestly explains why most of us try so hard to avoid it. One of the most powerful ideas in the book is this: connection is why we are here. As humans, we are wired for love, belonging, and connection, and shame threatens exactly that. Brown describes shame not simply as embarrassment, but as the fear of disconnection, that terrifying feeling that something I did, something I failed to do, or something about who I am makes me unworthy of love and belonging. That distinction between shame and guilt was incredibly helpful. Guilt says I made a mistake, shame says I am the mistake. And that difference changes everything, because guilt can motivate change, but shame corrodes the part of us that believes change is even possible. That really stayed with me. Another major concept in the book is what Brown calls wholehearted living. She defines wholeheartedness as engaging with the world from a place of worthiness, not perfection, not control, not constant achievement, worthiness. And she describes qualities of wholehearted people that I found deeply thought provoking, like cultivating authenticity by letting go of what people think, or self compassion instead of perfectionism, gratitude instead of scarcity, creativity instead of comparison, and so on. There was a line as well about exhaustion as a status symbol felt painfully modern. And a quote in the book stopped me about when failure is not an option, we can forget about learning, creativity, and innovation. Because perfectionism often disguises itself as high standards, but sometimes it's really fear. Fear of judgment, fear of being seen trying, fear of not being enough. One thing I especially appreciated is that Brown makes an important distinction between vulnerability and oversharing. This matters because some people may may hear be vulnerable and think it means emotionally dumping everything onto everyone. But her framing is much more nuanced. She says vulnerability means sharing your feelings and experiences with people who have earned the right to hear them. That phrase is so important because vulnerability requires trust, boundaries, and mutuality. Sharing to teach, connect, or move a conversation forward can be healthy, but sharing publicly just to process unresolved personal pain, that's something different. As someone thinking about creating and sharing publicly, I found this distinction incredibly grounding. One of the most practical parts of the book is shame resilience. Brown argues that shame thrives in secrecy, silence, and judgment, but empathy dismantles shame. Not fixing, not advice, not comparison, empathy. She describes practical steps. First, to recognize shame and its triggers. Second is doing a reality check. of the expectations driving that shame. Third, reaching out, because empathy requires connection. And fourth, speak shame, name it, bring it into the light. I love this idea because many of us think resilience means becoming emotionally invulnerable, but Brown argued the opposite. Resilience means staying emotionally honest. Even though I didn't pick this book up for parenting advice, one quote really struck me. If we want our children to love and accept who they are, our job is to love and accept who we are. That's such a powerful mirror. Because children learn less from what we instruct and more from how we live. The same is probably true in leadership too. People absorb our relationship with vulnerability more than our words about it. So, did this book help me with my original question? Yes, but maybe not in the way I expected. It didn't magically remove fear. It helped me understand that fear is part of creating, that vulnerability is a price of meaningful work, that courage is not confidence before action, it's willingness despite uncertainty. And maybe the deeper question is not what if people judge what I create. Maybe the better question is, am I willing to be seen anyway? If you have been hesitating to publish, create, speak, love, or simply show up more honestly in your life, I think this book is worth reading. I've only touched a small part of it here, especially leaving out leadership and much more around relationships and parenting. But perhaps that is your invitation to step into the arena yourself. If you have read Daring Greatly, I would genuinely love to know what stayed with you. And if you are currently standing at the edge of your own arena, what is stopping you?